Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to Exceller Literary Spotlight. Today, we have gathered at the Exceller bookstore where we are running our special monthly literary curation, Unbound Women Beyond Stereotypes, celebrating women's stories, voices, resilience, and collective strength. As women, we grow up on stories where princesses need to be saved, and also stories where women learn to save themselves. Stories of silence and sufferings, and sometimes stories of strengths. And more often than we realize, these stories stay with us and they shape us what we believe until one day we don't. And this is what today's conversation is really about. It's about how women's lives are shaped by the narratives we are handed out, and how, in turn, at one point of time, we rewrite those narratives through the lives we choose to live. To take us through these wonderful journeys, we are truly honored to have with us incredible authors and change makers of this time, Dr. Paramita Bhattacharya, a clinical psychologist, leadership coach, and author, and Dr. Shantini Bhattacharjee, a celebrated healthcare professional, author, and founder of Better Life Organization. And these two successful, very ambitious women have written two wonderful books. And these books have been recently published, and they are beautifully edited by Tailstocks Works and published by Exceller Books. And through this conversation today, we're going to feature exclusively these two books. Welcome, both of you, to today's conversation, Women Unbound, Celebrating Strengths in Fact and Fiction. So first, I will come to Dr. Paramita. So many congratulations, ma'am, for writing this wonderful and very powerful psychological fiction, Scars Beneath the Silence. And this book tells us the story of a woman who travels from trauma to strength to triumph. And this is not just a random fiction, this has grown out of real events that you, as a psychologist, have witnessed. So, take us into the world of your book, Scars Beneath the Silence, and also tell us how this world revolves around your leading lady, Niaz.
Thank you, Anjita. Thank you, Exceller, for arranging such a fantastic, event of book reading and discussing about book reviews. I think it's a fantastic initiative by you all. Thank you so much once again for inviting us and having us here. Well, when I talk about my book, Scars Beneath the Silence, it is really a book which is very near to my heart because it talks about two protagonists out here. One is Niaz and one is Alua, who is basically a foreigner. Now, Niaz has been a lady who has been very powerful, empowered woman, independent woman, coming from a successful family, rich, and have a lot of ambition in her mind. And then she gets married and her life moves on. But there has been a void somewhere. And in this void and in this yug of, you may say, social media, uh, this lady has come across a man, and this man, Oluwa, actually tries to engulf her physically, mentally, uh, completely financially, and dupes her totally. And there, the love, sex, and betrayal is the main theme of this story. And to know more, we need to, of course, go through this book, point to point, word to word, phrase to phrase. That's it all about as of now for your question.
Thank you so much. So you have basically you have been wonderful as a storyteller in this book, I must say, and you have basically taken a story where a woman is suffering silently and completely flip it around and turn it into a story of triumph. So how do you do that as a storyteller?
See, a lady who has been defeated physically, mentally, and financially cannot lead a life of triumph. But of course, since the lady is financially independent, so the triumph come because the arms of her husband was free to accept her, The arms of her husband was there to tell her, okay, come back to my life. The arms of her children were there to accept the mother or the come back to her life. So that's the triumph, I would say, that very few people can get into, because you get into the mess and to come out of the mess and again to start off the new life which you was in, it's very difficult. So the triumph here is that accepting Nayaz as the same person what she was before is the triumph indeed.
Wow. So you say you mean that the social acceptance, the inclusivity that she's getting from her family, from her children, that is the triumph in her life, right?
Yes,
But
that's right.
I think, do you think that this is what happens with many women who are struggling silently, or how does it differ from those women who really voice out their pain, their sufferings, and what is that turning point when the silence begins to break for women in general?
See, first and the foremost thing, why should a woman be silent? Because what happens, what we have seen is that the void is something which happens to everybody's life, in everybody's life. Either you are married or you're not married. So you might fall in love, or you might get into a relationship, or you might have a partner who might have a relationship or into a relationship already into. So what is important for you, that to choose a right partner, to choose a good companion and the right companion. Now the definition of right companion is many. So for me, what I say is right companion means a companion who has time, who has money, who has dedication and commitment for you. These are the four tenets to become a companion for you. So now if you have this, there shouldn't be any silence in your mind or in your life. You should be open about what type of relationship you are into. You could be into a relationship with a man, with a woman. However, because our society has advanced, it has moved forward, and we should be open enough about the relationship, and we should be open about the type of relationship we are into. What happens is that when we are into wrong relationship and we have guilt in our mind, at that point in time we try to hide things, and when it bursts out from some angle or not, or when it flickers out, then is the problem, then is the eruption of the volcano, and then the problem arrives from the family, from the society, and from the people at large. So that's how it starts, how it erupts.
That's a very candid answer. But I would also like to know what is your thought. What would be your message for single women? Because you have said that the right companionship or choosing the right partner really boils down to a lot of solution, right? It actually solves half of the problem. So, what is your message for single women who are not really in search of partnership or who are not in a partnership or companionship at the moment?
See, there is no harm to to remain single in life. I think that's the best thing to do, because you can be your own partner. That's the best thing to do, and if you can engulf it and you can live with it, I think you have won half the battle of your world. But very few people can do that, because for that you have to have very high, what you can say, that very high spirit in you, very high motivation in you, and you have to be self motivated to do that. So I think there's now no harm in being single, and just mingle with yourself. I think that's the best thing to happen, than to mingle with others and make things messy around you. So choose yourself to be your friend. I think that makes sense. So I would suggest, if you can really stay single, there's no harm in it. And there's no stereotype in these days that there's a pressure from the family that, yeah, you have to get married. If you are a girl or you are a boy, you have to get married. I don't think so. There's such pressure in this present generation we have of parents. At least my son wants to be single, I'll be the happiest. Than to mingle around or to spoil life with the wrong association. So I think being single is the happiest in the world.
Thank you so much. That is so enlightening. Thank you so much. So, as I was listening to Dr. Paromita, I was just gradually realizing how similar, and also as I was going through the book, it becomes very clear that women all over the world are bound by one similar destiny, bound somewhat bound by the similar fate, and that actually at that point of unison, I think we form some kind of sisterhood, some kind of sorority, And when from our sisterhood, one single woman breaks out the glass ceiling and really achieves something big, then she becomes some sort of a role model, right? And she becomes somebody we look up to a lot for source of courage and inspiration. And that brings me to the journey, to the extraordinary journey of Dr. Shantanu. Her book, In Search of Better Life, that encompasses uh, her journey as a woman who dreamed bigger than ordinary. And she brought affordable healthcare to places that needed the most. I was going through your profile, which is extraordinary. You have achieved so many things as a doctor. So at what point of your career you felt that you don't want to be limited as a doctor, and you want to do more? So you want to bring healthcare, you want to become an entrepreneur. So at what point of time your work turned into a mission for you?
Anjita, thank you for the question. Firstly, heartiest congratulations to Exceller Books for arranging, such events. I think it motivates a lot of new authors like me, and your support definitely means a lot. So thank you. Now, to answer your question, I think the spirit of entrepreneurship has always been in me, but I think the breaking point or the decision making point was during my tenure as a doctor in the tea gardens of Assam. I was working with one of the biggest tea companies, and during my posting in one of these tea gardens in Assam in the district of Udalguri, I did realize that the kind of healthcare that was literally zero that was there in those areas. As a doctor, if I didn't really do anything about it, then just being a doctor in a job didn't mean anything. So I think as a doctor, it's my social responsibility. As a human, it's my human responsibility also to really be able to do something so that something as basic as healthcare can be brought to people who need it the most. And in the city, what happens is patients are extremely fortunate to have a lot of options um, for them where they can really choose. But when you go to the remote places, the remotest of locations in India, which don't even exist on the map, there the situation is very different. People really have to, take a call whether they can afford to live or they just choose to die. So I think that was the decision making point for me. That was my eureka moment. I always call it that. When I decided that it was time for me to really enter the field and do something on my own to be able to bring quality healthcare to people.
So as you were saying, it you really made things sound easier than you actually did it. But tell me moments from your journey when you had to do a lot, had to go through a lot as a woman. So you must have traveled a lot. It must have involved a lot of challenges in your way. You had to deal with different stigma, taboo, or social barriers as well, right? From working with people from these remote areas. Tell us some moments from your experience.
Absolutely. I mean, right from learning the language, the local language that was not my mother tongue, which was Assamese, to finding a place where I could start better life, and then also really establishing this every single day that though I was a woman, I was probably more worthy than a lot of other men around because I had shown the guts of really, getting my hands dirty and uh, I was actually doing something and not just dreaming about things and not just speaking about things. So, when a woman, sets her foot into the field, most of the time there are n number of people who create uh, all kinds of hurdles. Um, I mean, a while before you were just saying that women have similar destinies, and we are kind of bound together by some kind of a common link. And I think one of the links that we are bound together is basically obstacles and hurdles, which are thrown across to us, um, sometimes really without the need of it. But just because you're a woman, you have to prove yourself more than men, and you have to prove yourself again and again every single day that you are worthy, you're deserving enough, and you can be successful. You can be single and yet be successful, and you don't have to be dependent on anybody for success. So I think that basic requirement of proving yourself to the society is one of the biggest obstacles or hurdles that all women face in whatever life they are leading, whether they are entrepreneurs or not. But I think that's a common thing.
Can you think of any story or any anecdote? Can you tell us any from your experience as a woman where you have faced hurdles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every day of building better life has been an anecdote of what you are asking. Something that I can remember of is when I was really searching for a place to start better life. uh, the many landlords, not landladies, but landlords, had this question that why in the world would I really want to set up something like Better Life? I am a woman. I should be comfortable, working as a doctor in one of the city hospitals of Guwahati. And why do I really want to come to the village and take up so much of trouble of, setting up something of that sort? So the entire process of really explaining and establishing why being a woman was not really a disadvantage, and why the need of setting up better life was a dire need for people who were really asking those questions. So establishing that itself was the biggest challenge, and I think that is one of the crucial moments of setting up better life, because the hurdles in the beginning were too much. So
So, at the face of these adversities, these challenges, what keeps you grounded in your purpose?
the purpose itself, I mean, you've nailed the word. If your purpose in life is clear, which to me is, my purpose in life is to heal people, and I will do anything and everything in the world to be able to live my purpose every single day. And I feel my purpose is much bigger and much stronger than the hurdles. So I think that keeps me going.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderfully answered. So, so we have actually established that these boundaries that we face as women are not fairy tale boundaries. There are really there are glass ceilings. There are boundaries that we have to overcome. There are real hurdles. And one of the most important things in overcoming these hurdles is our inner strength. The strength which is not just artificial or not just performative, but the real life force from within, the strength within. And this, when I talk about strength, I think all of us realize that this is not the strength. I'm not talking about strength as the outcome, that I have achieved something big and then the strength will come to me. It doesn't happen. I believe it doesn't happen that way. Rather, strength is everything in between. When we are moving forward to our purpose, to our goal, and that I think brings us to a deeper level, to a more personal space in this conversation. I think as women, as ambitious and very successful, you have already proved yourselves. And as Dr. Shantini said, that there are these challenges, adversities at every step of life. So you had to do it doubly. Maybe a man would have done it same. I mean, there are hurdles for men as well, but there are fewer hurdles. But for women, it is doubled down in some way. So what will be like? And there is a lot of pressure also for women in this time to look strong, even if you are not. Even if there are moments of vulnerabilities. As a psychologist, Dr. Paramita, you would agree with me that there are moments of vulnerabilities, there are moments where we don't feel actually strong. But what can keep us strong in those moments? I would like to know.
See, when I talk about women, we have to talk about the chronology. Women are Matri Shakti. Women are the creator. When we talk about women, women are Mother Nature. So women are the people who are the strongest biologically. They are more than women, more than man. That could be. Why? Because women give birth to another life, which is a man. So a man cannot deny a woman, but a woman can deny a man in today's scientific yug. So we can say that a woman can do without a man, but a man cannot do without a woman. In that way, I would say that a woman is empowered and stronger biologically, but emotionally, yes. At times, you actually fall weak because of various pressure which you are going through every day, starting from when you are a child till you become a mother, till become you become a mother-in-law. You are always in a pressure. So the women at times when they falter emotionally, it is very important that you do certain things, like we as counselors, we say that you engage yourself into some spiritual path. Whatever religion you are following, please go through certain spiritual path. Like you can do chanting, which is very important. You can do meditation, which is very important. And above all, women needs to be independent in whatever age you are in. You need to be financially independent. You should not go and ask for a single buck from your father, brother, or your husband or your partner. That is very, very important from day one. If you have a child, if you have a sister, if you have anybody, I think everybody should just convey one thing, that women should be financially independent. That is very, very important. Half your world has been captured or conquered if you are financially independent. And I think that is something which I always try to entrust upon women and empower women. That way, we do a lot of activities throughout many NGOs where we try to empower lesser educated women across the globe, and we are doing it fairly, we are doing it joyfully, and I'm sure that if we all join our hands together, we can make this world a better place.
Dr. Shantani, I would also like to know your opinion on this.
I think if we are speaking about vulnerability, I think vulnerability makes you human. And irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman, there will be moments of vulnerability. I think the best way to, to really strive across vulnerability is to accept the fact that uh, if there are weak moments, if there are moments where you are vulnerable, why not take charge of your own emotions? Mostly, what happens is, especially with women, during moments of vulnerability, women try and seek, that shelter or that support in the partner and in the man in her life. But what if women took charge of their own emotions, understood, their emotions much better, and really, made friends with those. In that case, even if there are vulnerable moments in life, a woman would really know how to sail through it smoothly.
Absolutely. So, as you talked about taking charge of one's emotion as women, I think it is also important to have female friendships, to have this sisterhood, to have someone to rely on. Because as you said, that sometimes at our vulnerable moments we seek shelter to a man, to a partner, inevitably. But I think why not taking shelter to our to our sister or female friends or mother, right? And from this point of view, what do you think? Both of you are very successful and ambitious women and very strong women. So, what do you think a strong woman or a successful woman should uplift? How can we uplift other women who are in distress?
Oh, yes, certainly. If I talk about myself as an example, I have never taken, I have never cried on anybody's shoulder ever in my life from where I have got my senses. So it is like I feel that people misunderstood me, because a person like me who is creative by nature, who is narrative by character, and who is angry by attitude, very difficult to understand. So people would rather misunderstand than understand. So if people misunderstand your perception, there's again a problem. It can be your mother, it can be your friend, it can be your sister, it can be anybody. So it is very important first to find, as Shantani has rightly said, you have to find the right partner or a right companion where you can share your problems or where you can share your pain with. Otherwise, that pain will deepen and become a grief. Pain will not remain a pain, it will be a grief. So it is very important that you choose the right companion to share your pain with. Otherwise, keep it to yourself, be self motivated. That, and something which she has said, I rightly agree with her, that you should accept certain facts in life, that you are a woman, these are the hurdles which would happen to you, which would come to you, and you should know you how to overcome it, because we learn from every mistakes we make, and every mistake teaches us how to overcome it. So next time when we are making mistakes, we know we have got that because we have read that chapter. So we can relate to the chapter and move on to the next chapter. That is what I can say from my side.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shantanu.
Well, I think if we are speaking about uplifting other women, I think first uplift yourself. That sets the best example for other women to follow. And, I personally feel that inner strength is extremely magnetic. If you are strong from within, if you are in charge of yourself, that energy will definitely spread around you. So for me, I think I uplift myself every day, and that I hope makes me a role model for a lot of others.
Absolutely. So, women sometimes, women are still in the middle of their journey, right? Very young women are there who are still trying to find their voices and still figuring out their way forward. What will be your message to them?
Your question is, what is the message for women who have not find out?
Yes, they're still searching.
See, first and the foremost thing, an objective of life has to be rooted. What is the objective of one's life? My life has an objective. It is, one is personal objective, second is career objective or goals. Now, if a person is goalless or objectiveless, is then why are we living? So my objective is to get into or help other people or empower other women or empower people, or help at least 10,000 people to get jobs in next 10 years. This is my objective in life, perhaps. Or my personal objective is, I want my son to become the best father or a best husband in life. That is my personal objective. So this objective is not that I have, noted it today. It was when I became a mother, when I started my journey as a career woman. So your objective should be mooted, written when you starting your journey. Ekdam in the initial years of your life. Initial years mean when you become a mother, when you become a wife, or when you become a torch bearer in the society or a career woman. So I would say that people who are yet confused, it is time for you to sit. If you cannot decide yourself, please take help from people. There are people who gives career counseling, who give counseling of self counseling, for personal counseling. Take help, seek help, and you can definitely get your goals and objective clear. Thank you.
I will take it up from where Paramita ma'am left. Most importantly, look for the purpose of your life. Secondly, once you understood or realized that, please dare to dream. Most women are very scared of dreaming. Uh, they look at obstacles and hurdles and what will not work for them first, then really putting their energies into creating their dream. And thirdly, don't seek validation in others. If you yourself are confident of what you are dreaming, what you really want in life, That is enough. uh, don't go outside and seek validation. I think these are the three brief things that I would like to put across.
Wow, wonderful. So it is actually it was a very searching discussion in a very short time. So we were listening with rapt attention. So we have two very young women here as in our audience. So any question? I'm opening the floor for question answers. So any question?
Yeah, I have one question. That is there is this thing called intrasexual competition, and I think that sometimes among women the competition is mostly based on looks, because I have seen that there are women who are fantastic. They're studying in Germany, they're achieving their goals, but what they are focusing on is someone else is prettier than they are, and they're depressed. They're eating like, oh my god, crazy, and like they are not well right now mentally, but they will not focus on what they have achieved. They will only focus on their looks. And also, why women are always focusing on their looks? We are more than that, right? We are not just born to give birth or look pretty or say nice things or smile. So what should we do to stop thinking about these things, looks?
Yeah. See, Shantari has said one fantastic thing, the dream. So, which reminded me when I was in my corporates, we used to say D3: dare, dream, and deliver. So, women are there for D3. You have to dare what you are, accept it. Dream. You should have high dreams. If you are there in Germany and if you're a research scholar, I think you are much ahead than any man around you. So you have already achieved your dream. And when you have achieved your dream, then deliver. Deliver in the field which you have already achieved. Looks are very momentary. You have seen that today what Madhuri Dixit looks. I am taking names. I don't mind doing that because age is going to take away your looks.
Absolutely.
But what will remain is your inner values, inner potential, inner achievements in per se what you're doing for the society at large. So please focus on that, and I think that's more than enough for any women to think beyond. There's no time for that.
Also, I think it boils down to that basic concept where people, always look for these external things when their inner world is not aligned and when they don't have a purpose in life. If you have a purpose in life, you will be so aligned to that you will really not have any, mental bandwidth or time or energy to really think about external things, temporary things like looks and all of those things. So I think it's very important to inculcate this concept of purpose in people's lives very early, so that people don't waste half of their lives, just being directionless.
I have a question too. So, what do you think about empowered women in literature is shaped by what sells in the market?
Very good question.
I didn't get your question.
I asked that what do you think about empowered women characters or anything in literature is mostly shaped by what sells in the market, or is generally a strong character, or it's just a like
What sense?
I don't know, man, like metaphor of like a individual which is has magical powers of doing everything, not just how all of us are suffering in so many things in like systematic way in social life. So what do you think about that?
I think I'm going to ask you a question first in counter to what you asked. What is the definition of empowerment in your own head? What do you mean by empowered?
To give a purpose in art by my work, by every woman's work. Like empowerment is just the strength you should feel in yourself first, and then you should put together and inspire others to do.
Absolutely. So, if that is the definition of empowerment, you tell me, does feeling powered from within or feeling strong from within, is that dependent on how many magical powers you really have or how much of achievements you've really made? It's an internal dialogue that you have with your own self. You are empowered in your own way, I am empowered in my own way. Even if you have not written a book today, you might be more empowered than me. It all depends on your own inner dialogue with yourself. Now, coming to your question that what kind of empowered women characters do sell in the market, I think it's again a perspective of the society, because what people are buying, what customers are buying, is basically a reflection of their is the reflection of what they think about empowerment and how empowered are they themselves. That decides on their choice of characters, choice of books, stories, everything, right? So as society becomes more liberal, more open to accepting different kinds of empowerment, I think more varieties of empowered characters would really sell in stories, movies, films, whatever.
To add to what Shantani has said, empowerment to me is what you feel, found, and felt. F3. So I use short forms to make life simpler. Feel, found, and felt. So what you feel about yourself is very important. Are you feeling empowered? If you're feeling empowered, then you have actually found yourself. So feel, found, and felt. And what others felt about you is something which you should ignore. So if you have to consider yourself into a package, and if you have to consider yourself into a commodity, which women are not, then you are not empowered. Empowered women are not sellable as a commodity. We are not commodities. So we are not a package out here. Like if I have to sell this book has to come with a proper cover, proper writing, proper editing. So this book is a commodity. Am I a commodity? Are you a commodity? You are F3. Feel, found, felt. That you have felt that I am empowered today, and you have achieved your empowerment. You have achieved your empowerment. You have got your empowerment, and I think that's the case. You've already achieved it. So never ever feel that you cannot. The women should be used as a commodity. Never. We are never a commodity. We are much ahead and above that. That's it.
What a nice question. What's your name?
Pratyusha.
Pratyusha. Okay. So yeah, wonderful question actually, and yours as well. So I think women are already empowered, but we have been like there is so much power that has been taken away from us over the ages historically. That's why we sometimes feel that we are not empowered, we are powerless. But I think it's all about the perception of the society. And if the moment we stand up for ourselves and we feel empowered from within, that is the day when we will feel empowered and we will be truly empowered. And that is how we can actually form a sisterhood where we can be powerful than ever. And I think that is there is so much of energy that we have that we can carry home today because of this high octane discussion, searching discussion that we have had today. And thanks to both of you, to our guests for joining us, and also our wonderful audience for joining us today. So I would like to end this. I think we have approached the conclusion. So if any other wants to ask any question from the audience, right? So I'm signing off from Excella Literary Spotlight. Stay updated and stay connected with us till we meet again at the next episode of Excella Literary Spotlight. Have a great time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Anjita.
Thank you so much for coming.